All right, thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. And up next is newspaper review.
And our newspaper reviewer, Chukwudi Okolo-Baja, is seated here in the studio wearing same colors. Who peeped into another's wardrobe this morning?
I think I'm proud to be associated with them, the colors you're putting on there, because you really look resplendent.
Thank you. Good morning.
And that's not flattering.
Yeah, I know.
I like the fabric.
It's good to see you.
Same here. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning.
Good morning, Nigeria.
And next time, don't peep into her wardrobe.
Abi.
So let's begin the deal with the leadership newspapers here. And it leads with a major headline: racketeering, air passengers lament as touts take over ticketing. You can find that story on page 4, and it has a diagram which illustrates what's going on. Passengers are stranded at airports as flight delays and cancellations linger. Touts take over ticketing at the nation's airports. Aviation stakeholders also blame forex crisis, Dana air suspension. And 1 hour flight from Lagos to Abuja costs 200,000 to 250,000 naira. Interesting.
Interesting indeed.
And then above the nameplate, ECOWAS must fund regional security to tackle terrorism. That's according to President Tinubu, new re-elected chairman of ECOWAS. Court orders ex-minister Umar Farouk to account for 729 billion naira. That's on page 9. Lifeless body of UNN student found in drainage. You can find that at the bottom right of the front page of the leadership papers, and the story is on page 6. Well, let's leave the leadership here, but not without telling you also that on page 4, there is this story that bandits kidnap ex-NLC president, 2 journalists' families in Kaduna. That one is on page 4. Let's go to the Daily Sun now. And the Daily Sun leads differently. Mass protests in universities. That's on page 6. Unions begin demonstration over unpaid salaries. Students of federal, state, tertiary institutions can apply for loan now. That's according to NEL Fund. Okay, the Sadia Umar Farouk story is also just to the right of the nameplate of the Daily Sun. So we'll leave that. And at the bottom right of the front of the Daily Sun, Jonathan Akpabio Clark, governors to attend Niger Delta Stakeholders Summit. That's on page 27. Jumai, I think I should invite you here just after telling you that NDLEA naps Chadian Oshun Monarch, youth corps member for drug trafficking. That's on page 4.
You know, let's quickly go to the New Telegraph now. And above the masthead, we have company income tax, that's CIT, revenue from banks, others rises by 91.91% to 531.26 billion naira. You find the details on page 4. And for FG exempts Gencos, Discos from withholding tax payment, details on page 8. And below the masthead, NDLEA smashes cocaine syndicate, arrest couples, recovers 2.1 billion naira drug in Lagos. Details on page 30. 2023 budget extension, concurrent running of 2 budgets will fuel corruptions. That's attributed to Nigerian lawyers. IPOP, don't worsen Nnamdi Kanu's problems, Obidigbo tells Igbo politicians. And the headlines we have in the New Telegraph: terrorism, work towards creating regional standby force, Tinubu tells ECOWAS leaders, with Ryder, as he was elected chairman. re-elected chairman. Senegalese president leads mediation with Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali. Expert fingers Al-Qaeda in Goza multiple suicide attacks. And at the side piece of the picture story, Sanu Nasu to hold state national protest ahead of strike. With rider student loans, NEL fund on board 36 state-owned tertiary institutions. While national grid collapsed again by TCN, details on page 8. 30 trillion ways and means, Senate extends probe period by 2 months. You find that on page 2. Savings from subsidy removal shall be used to make life comfortable for Nigerians. That's coming from Sage on page 11. At the bottom plate of the New Telegraph, bandits kidnap nation, blueprints journalists, wives, children in Kaduna. With rider abduct 79-year-old ex-NLC president. NUJ appeals to security agencies to rescue abducted journalists and their families as police declare manhunt. Prioritize intelligence gathering to check kidnapping, Atiku tells security agencies. Nigerians over-reliance on oil exports, bunkering, retarding economic growth. That's coming from CUPP. And the picture story there, you see the past speakers of the House of Representatives and past Senate presidents there. Mr. Chukudi?
Let me start from home. Kidnapping Kaduna is not new information. But you see, when you seem to be directly involved in it, you raise alarm. It's not as if other people being kidnapped have not been important to us. But this time around, a former NLC president, that's Takai Shamang, is taken.
79-year-old.
79 years old. It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't at all.
A year away from being called an octogenarian. It's not right. What if he doesn't survive the rigors he's put through? But then journalists were taken as well. Actually, the NUJ is asking security agencies to please try to work on retrieving from these people abducted blueprint and nations and Kaduna nations of his correspondent as well.
And their families.
And their families. Jumai and their families. It's a hideous scheme by people whom I simply would call heartless. Is it drugs? What level of hatred is leading to all this? Nigeria, we healthy, is being abused, directly by some people. And that's not good for us.
And that's a warning for journalists to be careful.
Very careful. And the worry is, why journalists? Is it related to their work? If it is, the clan indeed has reason to worry. That's what it means.
Exactly.
Okay.
I was just going to say that sometimes it's not all the cases that are kidnapped for ransom. Some are motivated by other reasons perhaps, and you begin to wonder. Politics sometimes, it could be anything.
It's just
because if you kidnap an individual with his family, so who bails who?
It's just
who bails who?
When I tell people they were taken by herdsmen, they were killed by herdsmen. Many people are hiding under the so-called herdsmen rampage
and all
to perpetrate their own acts of criminality. So, Victor, the point you made is very, very important. Air passengers lament as touts take over ticketing. It's not as if we've not known touts in Nigerian airports, but it ebbed. The nefarious activities of touts ebbed. When you have standards, touts don't have any space to work in. But they are saying now that the reduction in the number of local airlines operating may have led to some kind of desperation, and now touts are coming in between to help people who are
desperate,
afraid they may not, get airlines to board to their different destinations.
What happens to booking online? Because you could easily, that's the most convenient. You just stay in your comfort zone and do your booking. Check in even online and then go ahead to board when it's time.
I keep on saying that being educated is not all the time the same thing as being informed. I just registered for NHIS with one other person. I could have done that a long time ago. Many of us do not take advantage. Take advantage, that's the act. Take advantage of the things that are open to them. So people need to get more informed about how they can ease their burdens in the world. There's this other story. Please, we don't call it this other story. We should have actually started with it. That's our president. Getting 1 more year as ECOWAS chairman. For me, 2 assignments are right there before him. He has enunciated one of them already. Raising a regional force to counter terrorism so that we can see something that looks like development in the sub-region. That's a good one coming from him. The other one he has not mentioned, which I think diplomacy, quiet diplomacy is being adopted towards it, is the rebellion by some of our brothers who now have military regimes in West Africa. In this era and time, I think that needs to be worked on. Let them find a way to bring these, let's not call them boys, but when they're in uniform, we want to call them boys so that they can go and tackle the enemy. That's the context of boys.
But when at the same time as ECOWAS was meeting, they are launching their own alliance.
Sahel Alliance.
Isn't it, some will say it's now clear that they've slipped out of the grips of ECOWAS.
It doesn't matter. Mutation is a fact of life. Change is constant.
It's constant.
The point is how you manage change matters. But in the background, what should worry us is the West in quiet conflict with Russia on the West African soil. That's what should worry us.
Yeah. And that shouldn't be, because that proxy war comes to Africa. I don't know what that will portend for Africa's development.
You don't even want to think about it.
You know, it's just like it's just like the Cold War is coming to West Africa, and the West African region is now the new bride for, conspiracy theories that it's Russia, America, and France, and all that are now fighting on our shores. Well, we just need to be careful.
Yeah,
West Africa needs to be careful.
Yes. Russia has reached out to North Korea. President Putin went there just two weeks ago. And now there are indications that Russia is reaching out to some people you call pariah in the world and all that.
Yes.
I think the Russians are still saying, look, we are still globally relevant and we can cause a little trouble if you think you can edge us out easily. I don't know where all this will lead.
Well, let's now talk about the Nigeria's over-reliance on oil exports, bunkering, retarding economic growth. Bunkering has become something that refuses to go away. It's like a cancer.
That is because the rule of law is not as punchy as it should be on our shores. When people talk in this country about things not happening the way you say, it's the rule of law that has a problem. The Americans, the British, they are not morally better than us. They don't go to church or the mosque as much as we do, really. But they are deterred by the fact that when you perpetrate one or two things, the long arm of their law will catch up with you. That's it. So let's get the rule of law. I don't care what religion, what tribe a man comes from. Get me the criminal in religious uniform, or the tribal bigot who is actually, at the end of the day, a criminal. That is the point. Let the law work. And all these
that makes the point for, that makes a case for strong institutions.
Yes.
Strong institutions, Victor.
Strong institutions are not strong individuals.
There are many things President Biden of the United States cannot try.
He cannot try, no, he
understand?
cannot do that.
I'm not saying that our president is trying we're just talking about a place where institutions can really hold you back.
Just before we go, we have a minute to go. Mass protests in universities as unions begin demonstration over unpaid salaries.
Yes.
And then, okay.
And yes, and the unions they are really talking about, it's not ASU this time around. I put something down there. Yeah, they're talking about
non-academic
NASU and SSANU. And they are complaining that a breakdown in negotiations over withheld salaries and other grievances, as the paper puts it, is the reason. They are saying that that's the reason they
this problem have been existing for it has been existing for a very long time.
It is a recurring decimal.
Yes, it is.
And for those of us who are not very good in mathematics, it's almost insoluble. But I think it will be solved someday. Today is ASU, tomorrow is SANU, No, it doesn't make sense.
Well, Mr.
Well,
Chukudi,
we
hope they don't go on strike, because, you know, students will just suffer, and some of them are even writing their exams now.
Exactly.
Yes, and we just hope that something happens, and I'm sure President Tinubu is watching, is listening, and there will be a solution to it. This strike will not hold.
I pray that we find a solution,
yes.
really.
So, Mr. Chukudi, on that note, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me as usual.
As usual.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
So we'll take a break now. When we return, our conversation on setting agenda for the Economic Council will be next. Don't go away.